Today we are going to make an API call using Redux-Thunk. So first we are going to install the redux-persist package using npm install redux-persist. Second package which we are going to install is the Axios package. So for that we are going to run the command npm install Axios. Redux-persist is a library that allows to save the Redux store in the local storage. Now we are going to the store folder into our action.js, and we are going to export a constant named getUser, and we will assign it to getUser. Second, we are going to create another file inside our store which is named taskaction.js. The main code of the action is written inside taskaction.js. So first we will import the get user from our action.js file inside task action, and next we are going to export our const named get users, and next we are going to do a console.log statement which will give us the statement get users. So whenever this action is called, we will get the console.log of get users. Next we are going to return using the dispatch method. Here also we are going to add a console.log statement which will give the output of get user dispatched. Now we will write axios.get, and we will write the URL of the API that we are using here. You can either type it from the video or you can find it in the description. So this is the URL of the API, and we will enclose it inside single inverted commas. And then we will use the then, and we will add a response, and we will assign that response res to the constant person which is res.data. We will add this data inside another file, so do not worry about that. And lastly we are going to dispatch the res. The first one is the type which is get users, that is the action type, and the other thing that we are going to dispatch is the users which is our response or res. Next we are going to create another constant add user which also takes the input of parameters or params, and it gives out a console.log statement of add users. And then we are also going to add another dispatch statement here also. So we are going to return dispatch here a console.log statement which is add user dispatched, and then we will add a dispatch method like we did in our earlier method. Again we will call the axios.post. You might know about the get and post, and again we will paste the same URL inside our post also. Along with the URL we are also going to give parameters, that is params, as another argument. And then we are going to write then dot response, and again we will assign our response to a console.log statement which gives out our response, and another we are going to use axios.get and then paste the URL of our API again. And then we are going to use our dot then, and we will pass our response inside that. So res is assigned to console.log which displays the res. Lastly, we will add our dispatch statement. Inside our dispatch, again, we will have the type of get users, and next we will add our users, which will be response, that is which we gave the input inside our then statement. Inside our store, we are going to create a file index.js. Here we will import combined reducers from Redux, and then we are going to import task reducers from our reducer file, so which we are going to create later on after creating this file. Now we will create a const named root reducer which uses the combined reducers, and it has task which is assigned to task reducer. Lastly, we will export default our root reducer, and then we will create another file inside our store which will be the task reducer.js. That will be our main reducer component. So here we will import our get user from our action folder, and then we are going to create constant initial state which will be assigned to the state. Here we are assigning users which is an empty string, and also we are assigning a loading which will be false in the beginning. Then we are going to export default our state which will be assigned to the initial state, and we will take an input of action. Next we are going to add our switch statement which takes the input of action.type, and our first case is get user which returns the copy of the previous state and the user which has action.users, and the loading will be false again. And lastly we will add our default case which returns the state. Next we will set up our store.js inside the store folder. So inside store.js we are going to import create store from Redux, and next we are going to also import apply middleware which will have the input of Redux-Thunk. Then we are going to import Thunk from react-Thunk. We installed this package in the last video. Lastly we are going to import reducers from index.js which is present inside the store folder. We will also import persist reducer from redux-persist, and along with persist reducer we will also import persist store. We are going to create a const which is named persist config, and here we are going to assign a key which says root, and the storage, we have also imported our storage from redux persist library storage. The storage is assigned to storage. We have assigned our thunk to a const named middleware, and then we are going to use an if statement where process.env dot node.env, if it is equal to development, then we will create a const logger which is assigned to require, and inside require we will be passing our redux logger. Then we are going to push the file logger inside our middlewares which is an array. So next we will create a const named persist reducer which is assigned to persist reducer, and it takes the input of persist config and reducers. Now we will export default, and we will add a let statement which has a let named store, and we will assign it to create store which take two input persisted reducer and apply middleware, and the apply middleware has the input of middleware that is indirectly passed to our thunk. Next we are going to add another let statement which has persister, and it is assigned to the persist store. At the end we will return our store and persister. Next we will move on to our next file. We will create a file inside our components folder which is named thunkexamples.js, and using our RCE code snippet we will create a class component inside this file. First we will import get users from task action, and then using our const we are going to create the constructor and the super keyword which both uses the props, and this dot state will be empty. Next we are going to add component did mount And inside that we are going to add this dot props dot get users. Now inside our this is going to make all API calls and it will store it in the Redux store. So this statement is important. Next we are going to add a console.log statement which says this.props.tasks, and another statement, another argument inside that is this.props.loading. So we assign the loading to false in the beginning. So this console.log statement will give an output according to that. Adding an h1 tag which says the thunk example inside the div tag so that we can just see if our component works properly. Next we are going to add the map state to props which takes the input of state, and inside that we are going to pass the argument of loading which is then assigned to state.task.loading. We will also create the const map dispatch to props which takes dispatch and then it will return get users, and inside that we will pass an arrow function which will dispatch get users. We have used these two methods in our previous videos as well, and then we will export them using the connect statement. We also talked about the connect in our videos, so you can check the videos for the information. So return dispatch, and inside dispatch we have get users. Lastly, we will add our export default, connect, map state to props and map dispatch to props, and our thunk example. Now we will render our thunk examples inside app.js. Inside our main index.js file, we will import config store from our store. We are going to import persist gate from the redux persist library integration react. The persist gate delays rendering our app's UI until the persisted state has been retrieved and saved to Redux. Now we will add let, and inside that we will add store and persister and assign it to configure store. We have already wrapped our app inside provider, but now we are going to add persist gate inside provider. So we will set loading to null and persister to persister. Lastly, we will also add browser router. So for that we are going to install a package that is react router dom. To install we will run the command npm install react router dom -- save, and we will then wrap all of the above inside browser router. Lastly, we are going to create homecomponent.js inside our components folder, and then we will create a class component here again using RCE. Here we will import add users from our task action, and then we will call our constructor using rconst. We will also import connect, not from formic but will import it from react redux, adding our constructor using rconst, and inside our there will be no this dot state, so we will clear up that. We will have only constructor props and inside that super. Then we are going to add a new user using react-thunk. So add new user, and we will assign it to an arrow function, and here we will create a variable data which has two attributes. The first one is name, and let us suppose this name is Raj Singh, and the second is job which is developer. And then we will add this dot props dot submit, and we will add the data inside our submit, and then we will pass a console.log statement which says this.props.users, and the second argument is this.props.users. Inside our div we will just pass the name of our component, that is home component. And lastly, we will add our two methods, that is map state to props, which will take state, and then inside that we will write users, which is assigned to state.task.users. And another is our map dispatch to props, which uses dispatch and it returns the data which is inside submit. So inside that we will write dispatch and then add users and assigned to data. After we write dispatch, we will write add users and then insert data, and then at the end we will add the connect statement. So map state to props, map dispatch to props, and the home component. Lastly, we will add the home component inside app.js. Now if we look at our output, we get three actions. First is persist, second is rehydrate, and the third is get users. Persist, we have talked about persist. Rehydrate is another method, we will be talking about that in some other video. And get user was the action that we created. So inside that you can see we have the data status and status text and a lot of attributes inside that which we did not add. And also inside our get user we can see we have tasks that was defined by us, and the action was get user, and the next state is also being displayed here. So that's it for today.